No one suspected the pizza maker. I was the old man's most reliable employee. I worked in the same back corner of the kitchen for 40 years. Other staff came and went, but I never left my little spot next to the ovens. When I first started, no other Italian restaurant in town would hire a Mexican cook. They all told me to go get a job at a taco stand. But the old man gave me a chance. He just opened a restaurant and needed a pizza cook that would work for cheap. He said, if anyone asks, just tell them you're Sicilian. But no one ever asked. I never spoke a single word to any of the staff, not even to the old man, only an occasional glance when he paid me at the end of each week. I never called in sick. I didn't even own a cell phone. I showed up every morning at 9 o'clock to open the back door to the kitchen, made the pizzas, then went home at closing. I was lucky to have a job. I had no reason to complain. I was making a large cheese with sausage and green pepper when the old man announced that he was selling the restaurant. It was a shot fired right in my gut. The old man assured me that the new owner would keep me on staff, but I knew better. The new owner was Italian. Italians only trusted other Italians. I would be the first to go. Maybe someplace else would hire me. But who would hire a 60-year-old pizza cook? Besides, I didn't want to go someplace else. The restaurant was all I had. I'd been there since the beginning. The place was just as much mine as it was the old man's. For him to sell it without consulting me was the ultimate betrayal. I wanted to run the old man's hand through the mechanical dough roller and crush the bones into a fine paste. But I knew that wouldn't solve the problem. The only way for me to keep my quiet little corner in the back of the kitchen would be to stop the old man's deal from going through. One night, just before closing, I hid behind a dumpster in the back alley. I waited for the staff to go home. I used my key to sneak inside the restaurant. I knew the old man kept his office door unlocked. He was very trusting that way. The old man never updated anything. All of his records were still on paper. The old man used a mechanical cash register at the front counter. I scrolled through the old man's Rolodex. I knew what I was looking for. The name of the buyer. It would be some old Italian-sounding name. It didn't take me long to find it. I memorized the address. I waited until Wednesday night. Business was slow and the old man let everyone off early. In the back seat of my car, I changed it to a hoodie and a pair of sweatpants. I didn't want to take the chance of anyone being able to identify me. I left the car in the back alley of the restaurant. It was an hour on foot to the buyer's address. The house was located in a dimly lit suburb. There was a white picket fence with a sign out front that read, Calypso Court. There didn't appear to be anyone home. No one saw me as I crouched near a pair of low-cut bushes. I didn't know how long I would have to wait. It wasn't long. The car came rolling up the driveway just 10 minutes before I had arrived. I filled a dirty sock with some rocks I'd gathered on to walk over. When the buyer stepped out of the car, I raced out from the bushes and gave the man 5 quick whacks over the back of the head. Once the man's skull was good and caved in, I fished inside of his jacket pocket and stole his wallet. On the walk back to the restaurant, I chucked the murder weapon and wallet into the woods. When I got to the alley, I climbed into my car, changed back into my work clothes, and drove home. I showed up at work the next morning at 9 o'clock, like always. I locked the back door to the kitchen, turned on the mechanical dough roller, and warmed up the ovens. After several hours, I noticed something was off. I had been standing alone for half the workday, just staring down at the countertop. This had happened to me once before. One time, the old man had given everyone Columbus Day off, one of the old man's Italian quirks. I didn't know about it beforehand, because I didn't have a phone. The old man had no way to reach me. I spent the entire day in the back corner of the kitchen staring down at the counter. I went over to the wall to check the calendar. I wanted to make sure it wasn't another one of the old man's silly holidays. It wasn't. Perhaps the old man got news of the buyer's death. Maybe he was mourning the fact that the sale of his restaurant was also dead. That must be it, I thought. I knew that the sooner the old man found out, the sooner he would be able to get over it, and things could finally go back to normal. Tomorrow, things will be back on schedule. When I arrived at the restaurant the following morning, I discovered that the back entrance had been padlocked shut. Confused, I waited outside. When no one else arrived, I started to panic. I went around to the front of the building and smashed open the restaurant window with a trash can. I climbed inside and made my way into the old man's office. "Why are you doing this to me, old man?" I tore apart the office. "I gave you my life. This is how you repay me?" I was looking for some sort of document that would tell me where I could find the old man. "Has this been your motive all these decades? A sick game to drive me mad? I'll find your house too. I'll teach you a lesson." I came across a dusty ledger listing all of the restaurant's former employees. My name was written way up at the top. I found the old man's information in the back. Something familiar about it caught my attention. I scrolled through the old man's Rolodex until I found the buyer's card. I compared the two pieces of paper side by side. The addresses were identical. I raced out of the restaurant and got into my car. I drove to the woods where I had disposed of the murder weapon and the buyer's wallet. I searched through dirt and twigs for a good 20 minutes. I found the wallet and pulled out the driver's license. I studied the photo ID. It contained a picture of the old man. My face went pale. "I killed the wrong Italian!" I cried. I drove back to the restaurant and made my way in through the hole I broke in the front window. I picked up the phone off the wall, the one they used to make orders for delivery. I hadn't made a phone call in years. I dialed 0 and asked the operator to connect me to the police. I told them how I killed the old man. I told them it was an accident, a simple case of mistaken identity. I told them where I hid the murder weapon and the old man's wallet. I walked over to my spot in the back corner of the kitchen and turned on the ovens.